Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is Julie Ahern, the Vice President and Chief Operations Officer for Greenbrier Games. Julie, how you doing?
I am great. How are you?
Oh, just living life, trying to keep track of days and times, which in the pandemic...
I have no idea what you're talking about. No idea.
Yeah, no idea. The living at home, working at home, threw off my internal clock, and my son's talking to me today about Thursday being 2 days away, and I'm like, no, tomorrow's nope, today's Tuesday. That's life in these times we live in. So
Agreed. So not this weekend, but the previous weekend, I worked the entire weekend because I'm taking time off next week. And come Monday, I was like, it's Wednesday. Because I had already worked Saturday, Sunday. And I was like, nope, sure isn't. Sure isn't. So I was like, reset your brain. And so the next day was Tuesday, and I was like, today is Monday. It was over.
Too far of a reset.
Yeah.
so for anybody, I reset way too far. So for people who don't know you, who are you and what do you do for the gaming community?
Well, hi, I'm Julie. Like you said, I am one of the co-founders of Greenbrier Games. And what do I do for the gaming community? Well, so we publish mostly horror-themed board games. And so we have done a lot of stuff, Kickstarter board games, some direct to retail. We have two different product lines. One that is, like I said, more narrative RPG-ish style tabletop games, very thematic. And then our line that I like to call the cute but stabby line, which is lighter weight, but pretty take that. And so it's a small company. I've worn all the hats in our company in some way, shape, or form, from designing to logistics. And then in addition to that, I co-host You're Invited with Rachel Blasky from Paquetto and formerly 425 Game Labs. And she and I do we're on hiatus right now because conventions have started, but we do Friday morning a talk live where we talk about, for industry people, so for tips and tricks of our experiences in the board game world and what worked for us, what didn't, what's happening, what the current trends are, and then we have guests on that also are experts in their fields that we basically drill them for free information. It's not subtle. And then also I'm on the board for GAMA, which is the trade organization for the board game industry.
Nice. They just expanded or something?
Yes. So the most recent news from GAMA is that the bylaws were changed. So it was only publishers that could be a member. You could be a communicating member, which meant you get the newsletters and some access to information, but you couldn't vote. You couldn't be on, you didn't get a lot of the benefits that being a member. And by a member, I mean your company is a member. So if you are a company of one, you are the member. But if, like, Greenbrier Games is a member, I happen to be the person that runs point for it. And it was just publishers. Now the bylaws have been changed so that if you are a business that is, so not just publishers, but retailers, distribution, creatives, meaning designers, artists, logistics, and one other, and I should know this because I was one of the people that rewrote the bylaws, but put me on the spot to remember things and put a recording on and I forget. So now we're trying to recruit all media. Media was the last one. So content creators, these people to become members, because in addition, one of the big parts being we will have 2 people from each group on the board. So the board will consist of 12 people who then do all the voting and make the decision process for what services are we doing, what is our focus to help provide assistance to the board game industry as a whole.
That's awesome. No, that's great. I was gonna try to get out to Gamma last year, but something happened. So
Yeah, well,
and this year
it
too,
was a
right?
pretty intense Gamma. It we went, and then everybody left real sudden. So that happened.
So that happened. Yeah,
Yep.
well, the convention circuit is starting to maybe open back up slowly. I'm
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure is.
I'm looking at trying to hit up Proto Spiel Chicago in about a month. So that'll be the first one that I will venture back out into, and we will see how that goes.
Rachel is on the board for the Great Plains Game Festival that happened last weekend. So that happened, and it's a small regional convention, and they were, they don't have a huge number of people. I think it was about 250 to 300 people came, which was, they were down from the previous year. They had their convention and then everything shut down, and they're the one of the first ones I've heard of to start back up. Seemed pretty successful.
Good.
Stephen Bonacore was their guest of honor. They had Our Family Plays Games there, so they do a lot of regional support in Lincoln, Nebraska, so that was pretty cool. And so I was not there, but I saw it vicariously through Rachel, since she's my co-host and we talk about stuff all the time. A lot of back and forth conversations that we had based on all of our information about what other conventions are doing based on mask policies, what are they, requiring vaccinations or not. And I know that here in Indy, while yes, Gen Con is supposed to be happening in a couple weeks, and that's part of the reason. So we were laughing earlier because I thought it was like 5:00. I was very intense in planning for Gen Con today, like all in full tilt boogie, trying to wrap my head around everything, all the moving parts, because Gen Con's happening, and then 2 weekends after that is Origins, and I'm trying to figure out how to get product from one place to the other without shipping it all the way back, like it's been great. It's like Tetris, only painful.
So Greenbrier is based out of where though?
So we're founded in Massachusetts. Jeff and I started the Greenbrier Games because we were in a gaming group, and our gaming group, which he had played board games for a long time. I had played board games for a long time. We met in Massachusetts, and start like with our significant others at the time, and like a bunch of other people, but like we were playing Arkham Horror, Twilight Imperium. There was very little light. I think the lightest we had was Agricola, and so when we were playing, it was like all day Sunday. It was our whole, like, I'd get up, make snacks for the day, bring them over, and we were done at like 9:00 that night. And we did that for a while before we started trying to make a game ourselves. That was our jam. Yeah. So and the thing is, so like our first game, Zepocalypse, we didn't know we were going to be a company. We just wanted to make a game, and Zepocalypse, Zombie Apocalypse, great, cool. And again, it reflects we were much younger. It's much more raw as gameplay goes. It's for a very specific demographic, and it did well for that time. But again, I remember us being like, well, if we're going to be a company, we need to be something. And Jeff and Zach it was like, like every night was like up until 3 in the morning working on stuff and then playing games and then, getting stupid and slap happy because you're tired. And it's so, like we'd say we have these bizarre conversations, but I remember one of the conversations being, well, if we do this, what should the company be? And then being like, well, it's going to be Zpocalypse, the company. I was like, no, it's not. And they
Yeah.
were like, why? What's wrong with Zpocalypse? Don't you like our game? I'm like, I love our game. But 5 years from now, do I still want to be making only Zpocalypse? And they
Right.
were like, well, what else are we going to do? I was like, I don't know, but wouldn't you like that option? Maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're, oh, yeah, I guess so. But like, I don't even know what we would name it. It's like a dead silence for like 10 minutes while we were like, huh. Until we got to Greenbrier, which was another late night joke, which our artist said that if a zombie apocalypse ever happened, he'd want to stay at the Greenbrier Hotel in West Virginia, where he's from, because it's a super fancy hotel and they'd have superior snacks in their bunker.
What more do you need?
Right. That was
Yeah.
literally his reasoning was they would have the best snacks so he could have like caviar and champagne while the world ended. That was his like late night, 3 in the morning. But so it was still a tie-in, but I was like, all right, but this doesn't sound like I could sell something like Barbarian Battlegrounds and
Right.
or not just
Sure.
Zpocalypse presents the Happy Fuzzy Bunny game. What?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, like that's when Tim and I, when it was just going to be me originally, I was like, I had like a review when I used to do movie reviews. It was called Harry Man Reviews and stuff like that. And then, but Tim had a beard, I had a beard, and we're like, I guess bearded board games make sense. And like you said, it allows you to do more than just one game.
Yeah. And it's fun. Like we've recently, there was this whole joke about it was adjective animal games because there are so many companies out
Oh,
there that went with, an adjective and then, that seemed to be a naming convention. So, but then there's also the ones that are, I actually have a very hard time remembering Board and Dice and like some of the ones because it's so generic.
yeah. What's the
And they're
indie?
great games and they're great companies. And I'm like, which combination of board game reference words
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the name of this particular? And it's really like I feel super bad. So it's naming is hard. That's all
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Well,
say.
like I always get. Yeah. See, I have to look at. I know I had Koo sitting next to me. Indie boards and cards. I'm always like, it's indie cards and boards. Indie boards cards. Yeah.
So they were the first company of that ilk that I knew. So I never forget them. But anything else of that type of naming convention, I'm like, it's the not indie boards and cards game that sounds like indie boards and cards. That is what my brain does, and everything else is a blank, and I feel awful about that.
I mean, it happens, right?
Yeah. Jeff and Zach still live in Massachusetts. I live in Indy, so but I've been kind of I have been the nomad of the company always. I mean, before even there was a company, I've lived a lot of different places. So every time I'm like, I'm moving again, they're like, just tell us where to send the paycheck and how to file the taxes. And I'm like, cool.
Send us
All
a
right.
postcard.
Yeah. So that's a thing that happens. And yes, I live in Indianapolis now, so definitely going to both of those, but trying to plan for both of them is kind of, I mean, after doing no conventions has been intense.
No,
It's been intense.
and well, Geekway this year. That's how we met. Was at Geekway.
Oh yeah, I'm going to Geekway too,
Well,
which
I'll
is
see you there.
the week after Origins. So I am
It's in the middle of the week too.
correct. It's the week after the weekend of Origins. So I'm gonna Gen Con, and then I have a week off, and then leave on the Monday the following week to go to get ready to set up for Origins, because also being on the board and Gamma runs the Origin convention, so I have to be there early for meetings. Then Origins, and then Monday morning drive back to Indianapolis, drop off some stuff, and then keep driving to St. Louis to go to to that, and then come back, and then a week later go to Essen,
Wow.
and then
That's on my bucket list to go to Essen. I would love.
oh, do it! It's so good.
I know.
It's so good.
I want to go so bad, but it's a bit expensive right now,
Oh,
and
it's super expensive, and also, I mean, all of this is terrifying. I'm being very lighthearted here, but I can tell you that there have been very many nights of me staying awake, quietly panicking about the thought of doing all this travel right now.
yeah, we haven't. I haven't traveled anywhere really. We took a vacation and we just drove to like Hot Springs, Arkansas, and stayed in a cabin in the woods. So that was just to get away from our house,
Yeah,
because we've been in this house for a year and a half.
yeah.
It's like I gotta get out of my house.
Well, I mean, embracing the original Zpocalypse game, I have some very serious masks that are going to terrify people that I have no shame in wearing, in with all the great swaths of humanity that are going to be out and about.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting last quarter of the year, quarter and some change, I guess. Really, see how the circuit holds out, and hopefully 2022 we kind of get back to, I don't want to say normal, but back we get a new normal in moving forward, because there's
I
also
hope so.
Game Fest Midwest is also the
Yeah,
Midwest Game Fest out in Kansas City.
yeah.
Going to look at trying to go out there. So it's going to be, Protospiel Chicago, go test some of my new games, see how that'll be how put my toe in the water up there and see how this goes.
And so, having lived in Chicago, I still get all the. I'm on the mailing list for a lot of. I went to a lot of conventions when I was local, close, like living in Chicago. That I'm also like, no, thank you. So, like C2E2,
Yep.
no, thank you. Um, the one that I got recently was Midwest Fur Fest, because I have had a booth at Midwest Furries. Loved. You would think they'd want like light, fluffy games. No, they love my games. They love my games. I sold more Apocalypse at
Oh.
Midwest Fur Fest and Fur Squared, like hands down. Love them. So,
find your market and exploit it. There you go.
and let's face it, it's beyond wearing a mask. It's like like everybody there is super masked up. So there's something to be said for that. Just saying.
I'm gonna take a note on that. Check this. No,
Yeah. Also, I know people like to goof on furries and everything like that, but everybody was super happy and friendly and respected boundaries if you were not a furry. And I had a
sure.
great time when I went. And sold a lot of games. So I contemplated it, but I was like, I can't do one more. I'm good. I'm good this year. I've already I'm going from 0 to Gen Con, and then I'm just like blowing through to like mid October. And everybody's like, maybe I'll see you at PAX U. I'm like, I'm not going. That's by then. No, I'm done.
I'm sleeping that month.
Yes. That's not happening for me.
So how did you get into gaming way back when?
I've always played board games and card games, and so I started D&D in the 4th grade, 2nd edition. I have always played. So my family always played the classic board games and everything, but also are very serious about their card games. So every card game there is, we've played and still play. And there was not a lot of like watching TV growing up in my house and everything. It was board games and card games. And then I started playing D&D, and I sucked my siblings into it. They really had no choice. And so I've always played board games in some way, shape, or form. And then by the time I got to college, I found cooler, newer, different, more exciting, advanced stuff. And then grad school I was teaching, and my best friend is is Kate Maxlow, who she and I were the ones that ended up designing, I don't know, hundreds of educational board games together. But one of the things that when we were in grad school together, our first thing was to have a board game night. And that evolved into a weekly thing that we played all the time. And then I moved, that was in Virginia. And then I moved up to Massachusetts and I was like, I need to find people and do stuff. So immediately started going to another board game group, and that was Jeff. So
No, that's exactly, like, this whole thing with me started with just, well, let's get this out of the way. How do you say the Settlers of Klaus Teuber's game?
Catan.
Oh no, you're one of the Catans over Catans. All right. Anyway, we started playing Settlers of Catan, and it just kind of branched out from there. And then when I started my new company recently, I let my board game flag fly. Boom, let's find the gamers, and now we play every Thursday. And I'm starting off kind of low, but we're building. So
See, now it's fair though, because Settlers of Catan was in Virginia, so that's why I pronounce it that way.
that
Because
makes sense.
that's how everybody. But I feel like if I had been in Massachusetts at the time, I would have pronounced it Catan, because that's like you think aunt versus aunt.
Yeah,
I'm Aunt Julie, so you would think that I would say it that way, but no, I don't.
and, but yeah, it's what you do. You go somewhere and you just start finding people that game, and usually they're I mean, obviously they're the best people, right? You know,
They were great.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully we can get back into some live action. I keep waiting. We had a game night at a local bar here, well, pub, I guess, called Tapped, and they would have it the first Monday of the month. You could show up and just they had board games. You could bring your own games, whatever, and it was really starting to gain momentum and get new blood in every month, and then bam, there
Yeah.
goes 2020, and it just ruined so much because I'm a member of the local St. Louis board game design group, and the people at Tap were great. Let us, show our games, play test them with people that were there. They let us sell our games there, no booth fee or anything, and it was like, this is great. And we just, like I said, we were just getting everything moving, and then bam, I'm like, man, I hope it doesn't take a year after we get started, another year of
To
just
ramp back
building,
up.
yeah, to
That's
ramp
hard.
back up.
And there's a number. So having moving to Massachusetts before I started spending time basically every Sunday going to Jeff's and gaming with his gaming group. There are so many of that in New England. So there's a quarterly group that meets in Framingham that I went to that, and that was my first. So playing board games, yes, but I would say that was my first feel of what a convention might be, which is, it was still just an amped up board game group, but it was, like a hotel room. But
That's
that
how they
was
start.
still right. But even that you start to get a sense of, oh, I have people. There are people, more people than just like the four people I know that I play with all the time, and they like the things I like, and that's amazing. That understanding, which I had always found like whatever the fringe element that I could like, it was just this one group of people, and it mostly, like I said, starting off, it was D&D and LARPing. So I knew a big LARPing community, but not everybody there played board games. We kind of segued into board games. It's funny because now they all buy my board games and play them, which is great. But that was not our go-to when we were younger. But now, like, everybody's like, no, I don't want to go camping in the woods for a weekend. I'd rather just sit here at my table with this lovely box that has pretty things in it and in the comfort of my home, where there's a bed upstairs instead of a tent. Thank you. So I think we all evolved
Yeah,
that way.
there's nothing wrong with that. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. So if I came to Indianapolis, what is the game currently out on your table?
Oh God, they come and go so quickly.
I know, flash in the pan.
I mean, well, so I have the added benefit slash deficit of being. We are a two publisher family here, because my significant other works for Arcane Wonders. So between both of us play testing each other's games, and then of course he reviews games,
Yeah.
they really do come and go so quickly. So what did we play? We played this past weekend. This past weekend we played Excavation Earth with the new expansion that's on Kickstarter right now. It belongs in a museum, so that he could do his review for that for Mighty Boards. And but we have played Excavation Earth a number of times.
No, I get that. I review board games as well for a website, and I just finished reviewing Chili Mafia.
Uh-huh.
Can't remember the drawing a blank of the company's name right now, which is terrible. Limery Games,
Uh-huh.
and so that's what. And I'll tell you, it is funny because you have your go tos that you go back to over and over and over again, but then having the opportunity to play test each other's games, but then also review games, you do go through a lot in a hurry.
So what's funny is, like, we have over 4,000 board games at our house. So when you say we go through a lot of, I mean, I'm not exaggerating here. We go through a lot of board games. The ones we go back to, Thunder Road and Cat Lady.
Cat Lady.
I love Cat Lady.
Oh
I love Cat
man.
Lady so much. And then again, I have nieces and nephews who are now ages 7 through 14 range. And they've grown up playing board games because of me. And Cat Lady was the one I went to visit for a week this summer. I hadn't seen them in a year. And so I went and saw them. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to hang out, but then I have to work for a couple days and then we can hang out some more. And there was like a day where they stole Cat Lady. And I was like, I need that back. You can't, no, I give you games all the time. You cannot have that. There's so many of them. I'm like, you know what? You seem to love that so much. You can have that one. And they were like, can we have? I was like, no, you get your own. Ask for it for Christmas.
It comes and goes from print too. Like I'll see it a lot at the game shop, and then I won't see it.
Well, they have an expansion. They have a new expansion out now too.
No.
Yeah, it just came out this past year. Like, I went and got it.
I didn't know they had an expansion.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, so as much as I've played, you name it, I've heard of it or played it, or or we had like at least once. Those are our, if we're sitting around, and then more recently. So really, if you were going to go to the one that we've played most reoccurring gameplays, it's Dream Cruise, which is a Euro that is a new release and hasn't really come to the United States yet. And sometimes we have secret insider industry people who send us things. And
well, let's not get anybody in trouble here.
Nope. But I have played that. We've played that. There was last month where that never left. That got unpacked very rarely because we to play something else and then we'd put it right back out. So that one, when it comes to the US,
yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye out for.
I am going to highly recommend.
I'm gonna keep my eye out for that one.
Yeah.
So this is always a hard question to ask of people that are completely in the industry like you. But like, do you board game at lunch? That's what I'm always looking for that 30-60 minute game that I can hammer at lunch. So do you play board games at lunch? I mean, you play board games all the time.
Yeah. So no, not lunch. So every Monday is our playtest day. So I play prototypes every Monday.
That's cool.
So games, like the games that I play until they're good and then I stop playing them games.
Yeah.
Those games I play, that's Mondays. And then typically Wednesday nights are our board game night. So I alternate because I also have a D&D group. So it's either D&D night or it's board game night and in the house. So those are our two kind of hard when I play board games, and then usually on the weekends um, that we play. And Wednesday night typically is well, this needs to be reviewed, so we need to play it. And we play through it kind of game. And then the weekends are for funsies play.
I've got a stack coming. I've got a stack still. I almost got through them of all the games I need to review. And then I got like 2 emails today that 2 more are coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. I got to get these games reviewed. But what happens is sometimes you hit something like, like Chili Mafia, which just struck a perfect chord with my son, who's 9. Man, he just devoured that game. And because it's so lighthearted and fast paced, we can play 2 or 3 hands of it. And then my wife will play it because, again, it's not a long game that
Yep.
takes a lot of, we could usually play, like, I call them like the, before bed games. And so, break out Millborn, or now Chili Mafia will hit that rotation of just these real quick games that you can play a couple hands, go to
Yep.
bed. And, you mentioned Paquetto earlier. I've got all their games behind me. Man, my son and I loved Mint Cooperation. We
Yep.
took all of them on our vacation, and we played Mint Control, Mint Cooperation, and Mint Works. We'd already played Mint Delivery to death because we took that on a vacation a couple years ago. So the only one we haven't played yet is Mint Bid. So I need to get that one played.
That's awesome. Rachel will be so pleased.
I've actually thought about reaching out to Rachel and Justin to be guests on my show, and I just haven't got around to it yet. So it's funny that you're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, now I should definitely. Now I feel like I should definitely.
I mean, now that they have sold the company, it
yeah,
became Paquetto, and it's not theirs anymore. But
24, yeah,
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we took it, like, because they're great. They're small. They fit into any kind of luggage.
Oh yeah, I have, yes, there are pocket ones that I adore as well.
There's nothing wrong with a good pocket game.
Not at all.
No. So what would be your go-to 60-minute game? If you only had a lunch hour, what game would you play?
See, and you asked me this, and I was like, I'll think about this and come up with an answer. There are so many. All right, so I've already said Cat Lady.
I forgot totally about Cat Lady until you mentioned it.
Never. I love it. So what other game would I say would be if I have time? So all right. So here's the deal. If I'm playing, it's going to be a solo because schedule wise, we are never on the same schedule. And solo games that I could play in an hour, just me, would actually be any of the graphic novels by Van Ryder, the RPG graphic novels. So they have box sets, and there's 3 series now.
Interesting.
Because I'm still an RPG girl at heart, and those are amazing. If you have never played one, so you can buy the individual books, and then they have the box sets, and I have the first 2 box sets, and then the third one I've already backed on Kickstarter, and those, so it's a graphic novel, and at the beginning you have your stats. I photocopy it, so I'm not writing inside the book, but you can. And then you've got a picture, and sometimes it has the speech bubbles, just like a graphic novel, but inside the picture are numbers, and the numbers, you find that number, and on that cell of that, you read, like, so you're choosing the path of what happens. And you've got different points or stats, and each one's a little bit different. So sometimes it's gaining points, and sometimes it's you're using your abilities to fight. So you have a wide variety. So they have an ongoing series from all of them. That's a Sherlock Holmes theme one. They have a werewolf one. They have a ninja and feudal Japan one. They're all different kinds, and each one stylistically, there's different art for each one. They're gorgeous. And I can get through an adventure whether I win or lose in about an hour.
That is awesome. I've not heard of that. I'll have to definitely look at that. One of my other guests talked about Fabled Lands, which was an RPG solo. We just need 2d6, and it's just a book. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure.
Yep. Somebody recommended that to me recently because they know my my predilection.
Well, and I'll tell you, I took it to work. I photocopied it out of the back so that I could just have it with me, and then
Yeah.
you just tell Siri to roll 2d6s and go from there.
Yep.
That's awesome. I'm going to look into these, the graphic novel ones for sure.
Well, Van Ryder, I mean, that's solo games are their thing, their jam. They've done others and to great success as well, but their wheelhouse is the solo game. So, Hostage Negotiator,
Oh
that whole
yeah,
series,
yeah.
and now Final Girl is coming out. And Final Girl is similar concept to Hostage Negotiator, but as a final girl, you're in a horror film. You're playing the final girl, and the object of the game is not to save all the people, although you get bonuses if you happen to save some of them. The object is to survive, outlast the killer, and it's awesome. So that is hasn't again hasn't come out yet, but I got to play an early copy of the first game, the first one, which is summer camp themed.
Oh
So
my
each one is like, so there's a
god!
haunted house theme, poltergeist house one. There's a, each one has clearly is a
Final
throwback to a
girl.
specific movie or a specific, like American horror story on TV. Like each one has specific themes with specific, like each final girl, you're like, oh, I know who that is.
That's awesome.
And they're amazing. They're amazing. And if you like Hostage Negotiator, it does. So it takes Hostage Negotiator and the feedback they got, they did the whole run of Hostage Negotiator, which does really well. But once you figure out what the strategies are, it it makes it pretty easy to beat it once you can math them out. So it adds dice to it to randomize it so that it's not that consistent. You can figure out the strategy and beat it. So they tweaked it. They tweaked the original design to make it new and different. And yeah,
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 I like
I'm
Hostage
super psyched for those
Negotiator.
to come out too.
Yeah, I like Hostage Negotiator. I was not aware of Final Girl, but that's thematically what a great
Yeah,
exactly what a great team.
yeah.
That's hilarious. So, what would be your 30-minute game? Or a good half hour.
30-minute. Well, that's Cat Lady.
Oh, there you go.
That's
There you go. Done over Cat Lady.
yeah.
So then, what would be your hidden gem or guilty pleasure game that you don't think a lot of people know or don't or doesn't get enough credit?
Oh, so many.
I know.
So many. Um so what game Blueprint from Z-Man.
See, you got me there. I don't know that one. Blueprint by Z-Man.
Yep, so it's it works really well as it's a 2 to 4 player game, but it's one of those ones that because we play a lot of games just the two of us, a lot of 2 to 4 two-player doesn't land well. Like you can play it, but it doesn't like you need that
So
third or fourth player.
yeah, it's an afterthought. Yeah.
And it's what so you roll dice and there is an extra modification when it is a two-player. But each of the dice, there's several different colors, so they're different types of materials. And behind a screen, you have a specific blueprint that you're building a building. And based on the color of the dice and where they're placed is the scoring mechanism. So the white ones or the clear ones are glass, the black ones are steel, green ones mean you're eco-friendly, brown ones are wood, and there might be orange too. But so based on your rolling and where you place them, you get 6 rounds, and each time you're rolling, selecting a die, and then grabbing out of a bag another random one to roll. And so you're choosing to roll, and it is am I playing to gain more points, or am I counting what dice the other player is getting and knowing what they're going for, so hate drafting to prevent them from getting points. And then you reveal, and whoever has the most points gets the first place. So you don't get those points. You won the bonus points for that round. But so you're getting points for being first place, but you're also getting points for if you manage to get any of the, like, you used all 6 of one type of die, or you all your dice are sequential 1 through 6, or you have at least 4 twos, or four of any kind of number. So there's several different paths to victory. It's not super hard, but it's definitely of that, thinky Euro. And then the dice add this level of randomization that you're also drafting them so you can see what's out there, but somebody might take the die you want. And then you're hoping what comes out of the bag is the die you need and it's the right number, because also you can't place dice that are a lower number than what you have already placed out there. So if you're stacking them and you start with a 6, you can't stack anything on top of it. So it's like it's just enough. It's just enough that it's hitting all my brain synapse trying to think out things, but not so much that you're like, I'm tired, this is hard, kind of a thing. It's just the right amount, and it's a perfect that I don't know why. Like when I say it and people know it, they're like, oh, good game. But I don't feel like it got a big wide
No, it
release.
sounds great.
That
I wrote it down. I'll track it down.
Like if you're a Z-Man fan, you're like, oh yeah, I know. But outside of that, I feel like it could have gotten more love.
That's too bad. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds great. You're right though. Like that's the thing. There's so many coming out anymore that you're like the hot ticket for like that week or that month, and then 2 months later you're already kind of forgotten. So
I mean, I've just thought of like 4 more, but I'm going to stop there. So I'll just.
This will be the longest podcast episode ever. Julie went on this rant
Julie's
of games.
favorite games.
Julie's favorite games that you haven't heard of today.
Yes.
Oh man! So, you are a Kickstarter backer and a Kickstarter creator.
Yes.
And so that's usually it's one of my last questions. But yeah, you do create, you do back. Kickstarter getting there. I see a lot of people putting out games, and the lead times now on these games are just you're just starting to see like a year, 2 years. It used to be like 6, 7, maybe 8 months, because but now with all the shipping and everything going crazy.
Okay, but it also used to be 6, 7, maybe 8 months, and then you would get I'm sorry, friends, we have to push back the deadline. And now people, instead of doing that, are just being honest about what they think the actual deadline is going to be.
That's fair.
I think is better. So, because yes, if everything was ideal, 6 months is realistic. Nothing is ever ideal. Nothing ever goes perfect. You're talking with another country, and usually there's a language barrier, and so you're unforeseen things because it's a creative endeavor. And well, so we talked earlier. I used to work for a company that designed education modules for corporations, and I was doing the GE lesson planning for engineers installing gas and steam turbines in different countries. And everything that we talk about, and imagine everything we talk about in board game design, installing a $1 billion piece of equipment in Siberia. And even if you plan everything to the T and millions to billions of dollars are on the line, stuff still goes wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Always. So, like, perspective. Like, everything we have a problem with, it was very interesting to do that because I was working part-time there and still working on for my company. And everything they complained about, I was like, oh yeah, no, us too. I mean, not that much money, but us too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in no company, even in a massive corporation like GE, will anything ever go smoothly. So how do you expect somebody who is a Kickstarter, like first time, who's pie in the sky and wants to do everything for you and make everything happen, and it is never sleeping and taking care of themselves, which I also strongly recommend against, is going to make it happen? You can't. Yeah. Nobody can.
No, I mean we ran into it with our game. We ran into all kinds of problems. We thought we had done enough reading and enough podcast listening and enough talking to people and reading Stegmeier's blog and everything, and man, we still had issues that you didn't even read about, stuff that just blindsides you. And
Well, but that's also so part of the reason we started You're Invited was because we were stuck at home and going crazy. But the other reason we started You're Invited,
boy, that's why I started my podcast.
right? The other reason was because I keep seeing the same questions over and over, and I see the same advice being given over and over, and it's given as its gospel truth, and it's not. It's this happened to work for me this one time, or even this handful of times, but my game and my situation and my methodology isn't going to be this. It's never going to be the same. We are not a uniform. Nothing about this industry is uniform and across the board. Nothing. Everybody's always like, well, let's get all the same. And you can't, because board games, different components, different shapes, different focuses. The people making them are creatives. So very different personalities, and you can't streamline any of that.
No,
You can try, and you can try to get on board at least on certain levels of like consistent pricing, or like consistent language, and I understand and appreciate all of that because I think that is important. But in truth, it is better, instead of saying, well, this is what you should do, it's, well, this is my experience, and here are the tools to go find out more about it, or how to react when these situations arise, or where to go to find the research when you hit this wall. Because you're always going to hit the wall. The only thing that's consistent is, as a small business owner, because that's what we are as small business owners. So not, and again, not just board games, any industry, being a small business owner, you're going to come across so many different challenges, and it's not and going to, and hearing the, well, this is how it works, is never going to be truly the answer. It's, well, this is my experience, and here are some ways that you know you can go and find a solution or a workaround when something happens. That's the only truth of being a small business owner in the board game industry, or out of it.
no, I agree. I mean, I do see a lot of the same mistakes being made, and I see a lot of people late. I think people have had a lot of time on their hands, obviously, with the pandemic. And a lot of people have come up with board games, and they don't understand that Kickstarter is not just a license to print money. And you see a lot of these games coming out now that's like, you guys, you can't run a 60-day campaign. You can't set a $25,000 goal when you're charging $20 for a deck of cards. Like, do the math.
Right.
You will never get that many backers.
That is, so that's one of our first, like, it's like, so we have built one of those crazy pants Excel spreadsheets that
Yeah,
we now have, that you can plug in the numbers, but we've had it always, because from the beginning, at least we're thinking about that. So even, and we were one of the first when Kickstarter was brand new. We were, for one shiny week, the highest funded Kickstarter game. Our first game was the highest funded Kickstarter game in the history of Kickstarter for one solid week, until Simon Zombicide came out, finished. So, we had that one week. It was amazing. It was glorious. I think I had pie. There was, but we, being a first time Kickstarter, like, before we did it, we looked at all kinds of Kickstarters, not just board game ones, and made lists about what was hitting well with people there, and what was like, and what did they have? Did we have that? Do we need to plan for that? What, like, all kinds of like research before even starting our Kickstarter page, and all the things that people, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I see somebody post, well, I'm 3 days into my Kickstarter thing, so what should I do for marketing? And I'm like, no, you're too late. You're too late.
When you're 30 days in, you should be done.
Right. 23 days is my hard stop at this point. We started, it was like 30,
Oh
35
yeah.
days. But even that, the times are getting short. Like, know the trends. Go on and watch. Don't go on and watch. Be like, okay, and then gets like, there's so much of that. But also in retail, like same kind of thing. If you, it's not. I have 500 games in my garage. How do I sell them? Is not the time to start thinking about it. It's not. It's not. I know it's so much work to think about the physical making of the game and all the things that go into it and all the questions that are going to get thrown at you and all the challenges you're going to face. But at the same time, while you're thinking about that, you need to be thinking about, how am I talking to retail? How am I talking to distribution? Who have I, you like, so much sooner.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart every time somebody comes up to me and says that. And I've all the time, and it happens all the time. My game is on Kickstarter. How do I get people to back it? Or I have a game in my basement garage. I rented out a storage unit. How do I sell them? And I'm like, friend, this is not when you ask that question.
No.
So ask questions first. And nobody wants to think about them when they are thinking about all the fun, shiny, making a game questions, because those are the fun bits. It is absolutely the fun bits.
Getting your prototype, seeing your first prototype come in, and having a physical copy of like the game you made, it is an unreal experience.
It's still an unreal, like, so
yeah.
Tales of Barbaria coming out October 6th. I'm a co-designer, and I haven't been a co-designer forever because I've been publishing and developing other people's games, but not designing them. And I got, so it's not one of our bigger games, but it's partly my game, and that's exciting. And even still, like, I got it, and I opened this is our first, hot off the press, their proof to make sure that the games they were making are good and shiny, and look at the final thing. And Jeff's like, well, I'm like, no, you're not. It's getting shipped to me. It is not getting shipped to you. I will be signing off on this one. He's like, all right, you're right. and I may have hugged it and cuddled it and called it George.
Hey,
and
there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe the name George is a little generic, but other than that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the rest of that.
And so that was squirrel. But the whole point, like, I was so happy, and yes, after years and years and years of publishing games, and each one comes and I'm like, yay, new game, but it's still an amazing feeling when it's something that was also just something that you were like, my brain did this. It's awesome. But after that wears off, you now have a very expensive my brain did this that is taking up space in your garage if you didn't plan.
That's the thing. I know somebody that did that, and they still have copies of their first game because they ordered like 1,000 copies of it back, probably right around the time Kickstarter was starting, so they didn't really have the chance for the crowdfunding thing. But still, they still got it, and it's been 10 years. So people that do that, I talk with people that invest heavily up front, and it's like, but do you have a game people want? That's like the best thing about Kickstarter is you can go off and launch it. It's free to launch your Kickstarter. It's free to find out nobody wants it and to retool it and to change it.
But it's not free these days. If you're going to build a Kickstarter that is going to resonate, you have to put some money investment.
Well, now you have to put marketing in and 2 months worth of that, and we're getting ready to ramp up our marketing for our next game, which is a publishing effort that we licensed a game from somebody and bringing it to market.
Same. So we're actually doing, speaking of 10 years, we are doing a retro reboot Kickstarter. So that'll be beginning of November that we're going to do Ninja Dice, Kage Masters, which was a Kickstarter release only. So Ninja Dice was in stores for years. It's right behind me. I'm staring over my shoulder. But Kage Masters was the dice expansion that made you a specialist. So you could be a specific type of ninja. And that expansion has not seen the light of day for many years. And then Yashima we're re-releasing as well. So we are going to do a Kickstarter with those two games that you can back one or the other or both.
Yeah, so that's also been kind of fun though, is seeing that whole, restoration games, kind of bringing back the old games, winning moves, going out and getting the rights to some older games and putting them back out there for people to
Oh yeah,
experience.
Restoration. Well, so they're redoing Thunder Road, and I don't know if you saw this, but so we play Thunder Road infamously so much that one of the cars, Arcane Wonders, is not actually publishing it. It's Restoration Games, but there's going to be an Arcane Wonders car because Robert and I play it so much and he talks about it so much.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And because it's the redesign is Richard Lanius, Arkham Horror, and he insisted because apparently Robert has talked about Thunder Road to him so much that he was like, well, it's gonna have, so it makes no sense, but it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. They did a picture, they screenshot and sent a picture, and everybody's like, well, how can we be in the game? And they're like, no, nobody else can be in the game, just Arcade Wonders, because Robert works for Arcade Wonders.
That's
and
awesome.
We don't know why, but we had to agree to it. So that is hilarious to me as well.
No, that's awesome.
Also shows you how small the board game community is.
It really is. And the more I talk to people, like I grew up outside Indianapolis, and I've talked to a couple of people that are designers in Indianapolis. I talked to a guy that went to my rival college. I went to Purdue. He grew up just outside Purdue, but went to IU instead. And I'm like, man, if I'd have known that before we started talking, I'd have worn all my Purdue stuff over on the, But it's like you said, the community's so, it's so tight, but it's a huge community, but it's like not.
It's not. It's really not as big as we think we are. We're actually still so small. So the good news about that is, as much as we always are saying, well, how much further can board games go? So much further. We still have so much growing potential. Plenty of naysayers out there saying, no, the bubble, it's bursting. And I'm like, no. Have you seen Target and Barnes and Nobles recently? And yes, your friendly local game store is a very different thing, and all the love to them, but bringing in Target, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon are also acting as ambassadors for the people who are going to buy the Cat Ladies of the world until they can get to the Greenbrier games of the world.
Yeah.
So I am happy to invite them in.
Oh, I forgot to ask you a question, Julie.
Yes.
In a game where you pick a color, what color do you gravitate
Red.
towards? I like it. No hesitation at all.
Red.
No.
Although, because so yes, that is my color of choice. I am not super picky as long as it's not blue, because again, Robert is the blue player, and therefore, if blue is left, I will play somebody else's, like, not on my fault. I am not blue because Robert is always blue, and therefore if I'm playing a game, demoing it or playing with a group, and blue is the last one, I'm like, please can I switch with anybody, because I will move somebody else's board game piece because it is ingrained in me. I am not blue.
I've done that before playing Catan, and I'm like, because I'm always red, and sometimes I'll be orange, but if I'm blue or white, I can guarantee you I'm going to lose that game. Not because I'm not my color, but because I'm looking at the board as red and plotting as red, even though I'm white. I'm like, oh, right. I'm white. I should not
You know,
have
I
built
can
that.
keep track of, give me a green, give me a yellow, give me a white, give me any other color. I can remember.
Just not
But you
blue.
make me blue, and I'm like, well, it's over. I'm just gonna start moving other people's pieces, and they're gonna get mad, and then everybody's gonna forget where they were. Nobody wants it. It's not even that I'm gonna lose. I'm just gonna mess up everybody else's game in the process. So
They're like, hey, just let Julie have anything other than blue. It's a lot smoother gaming
yeah,
process if
it's
she's
brutal,
not
and
blue.
it's not on purpose. It's never on purpose.
Never doing it to be mean, just doing it
Yeah,
because you don't know you
I'm
you can't.
clearly not that color, so I must be this one over here. Do 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 do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that though in good time. I'm like, oh, I got everything I need for a settlement or a city, and I'm like, wait, I can't even build a settlement because because I'm white and I don't even have a road down yet, man.
Oh no!
Yeah, and I'm like, well,
Sad.
yeah, I'm like, well, I guess I'll be over here if you need me, and I got plenty of wheat and wood if you need it, but I'll be here in the corner
Can I get a sheep, friends?
for
Can I
anything.
get a sheep?
Well, Julie, I've really enjoyed having you on today. Fantastic inside information, and I'm definitely going to look up your podcast, which was You're Invited,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm assuming it's on most podcast hosts.
So it's on YouTube.
Oh, well, even easier. I'll find it tomorrow.
Sweet.
Yeah. So if people wanted to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, so Greenbrier Games. Greenbrier, Brier Games. We're everywhere. We're on all the platforms. Although I don't do TikTok. Although we have one, it has nothing on it because it scares me. But we have all of them.
That's how I feel about I really need to get my Twitter going. I have a Twitter. I get emails that other people are tweeting, and I follow people. But if you follow me, I'm sorry, because that is one boring Twitter account to follow, as I do nothing.
So no, I post stuff up on there because we have pretty pictures, so I can post pretty pictures, and that's all day long, which is Instagram, but also it goes over well on Twitter. I am lucky enough to have Will Sobel as our new creative director do most of our tweet posts because he is much better in that platform, and he does a lot more designer diary and developer diary type stuff, which I like to do on in a full. I write it when I write a solid chunk of words, and he can parse it down to little snippets. So right, so you can find me on BGG, and you can find him on Twitter talking
There
about
you
stuff like
go.
that.
There you go. And then you'll be hopefully starting back out on the convention circuit here.
Yep, we'll have, like I said, Tales of Barbaria will be our new release this fall for the conventions, and our
Exciting.
retro reboot is coming out as soon as convention season basically ends. I'll be switching tactics, and then we'll be doing an announcement at Gen Con for our next big game.
Awesome.
So that'll be coming out soon.
Excellent. And as usual, if you want to reach out to me, it's facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3C Media and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.